Hey you guys, this is Jody Watkins from To Be Epic Fitness and Nutrition LLC. And today I'm not only going to tell you 8 squat mistakes that you might be making, but I'm also going to teach you how to not make those mistakes. Because at the end of the day, I love the fact that everyone is on their health journey. I love seeing people squat and I love seeing them exercise. But I will say from personal experience, I know all too well the injuries that can come from not doing some of these things properly. I also know now, later in life, how beneficial it is to really pay attention to what we're doing and to ensure we are alleviating these mistakes early on in our journey, because we really just want to be able to lift as long as possible, I hope. It's not about a quick fix. It's not about trying to get it done quickly. It's about longevity. It's about keeping our bodies healthy. Now, these are a lot of things that I didn't know when I was young and I was playing basketball, but now in my 40s that I know these things, I want to make sure that I am passing them to anyone else out there who wants to know the information, okay? So today I'm going to talk about 8 squat mistakes you might be making, or maybe you know other people who are making them. For my young athletes, these are things that you really want to pay attention to, okay? Because again, it's about longevity. If you're an athlete, you want to be able to play your sport for as long as possible, right? So let's make sure we are lifting properly, fueling our bodies correctly, and really doing all the things that we need to be doing, okay? I'm going to be showing you things today with this wooden dowel, okay? Because I personally have had to go away from putting a load on my back. I have bulging discs in my back now, and I have to be very careful. So I utilize things like the belt squat and other machines that don't put such a big load on my back. But I know everybody else that's out there healthy and they just want to squat, I know you're going to be using a bar, okay? So I'm going to show you with this wooden dowel what not to do so that you can keep going for as long as possible, okay? One of the biggest things that I see is when people are new to squatting, right? They have the weight on their back, and first of all, this isn't part of it, but I want to make sure you know where to place the weight, okay? You have a natural rack on your back. It's right here where your traps are, okay? If you have it way up here on your neck, you'll actually feel it, but it's going to be going against your spine. And that is really doing a disservice to your spine as a whole, especially the more load you put on, okay? So that's one thing you want to be careful for. So here we go. The first official mistake that I see a lot is when people go to squat, either their knees track in or they track too far out. Now, if you notice, I don't know if you can tell, but when I track too far out, my feet actually lift up on the ground, okay, or off the ground. That's something we definitely don't want, okay? We want to make sure that our feet are flat on the ground and that we have the ultimate foundation to perform this squat to its full effectiveness, all right? So you want to make sure your knees are not tracking in. This can actually cause tears along the outside of your knees, all right? So what you want to do is make sure your feet are about shoulder width apart. They are going to naturally track out just a little bit, but it shouldn't be too much to where you actually start coming up off the balls of your feet, okay? Keep the balls of your feet down, and you're just going to come up. You're going to go down, and then you're going to come up, okay? That's it. So that's the first thing, all right? Then the second one is basically your knees are going to push past your toes. This is something I see a lot, and I'm actually going to take this off, and hopefully with my knees, I can show you this one effectively. All right, so what does that mean where your knees push past your toes? Basically, you're squatting to a point where your knees are tracking over the foundation of your body, okay? That is not something you want to do. You want to make sure your knees are tracking back, and you want to make sure that you're sitting back like you're sitting in a chair, all right? So you should not be leaning forward, and we're going to go through this a little bit more too, and some of the other mistakes. You should actually be sitting back, right? So I'll make sure I have my weight back here. I'm sitting back, and then I'm coming back up, okay? So that's the second mistake, is your knees are actually tracking over your toes. You definitely don't want that. Okay, number 3, you're squatting too low. Have you ever seen people in the gym where they're squatting, right? And they're way down here? All right, that can do a whole lot of things. First off, if you have a huge load on your back, that's actually doing a disservice to your spine as a whole, because that load is now pressing down on your spine and you're not actually getting the full benefit from your legs. Another thing is, once you get past a certain point, once you get past about 90 degrees, you are actually no longer utilizing the muscles that you thought you were using. And again, you are actually compressing your spine and you're doing a disservice to your spine as a whole, okay? So the best thing to do is not go past that 90-degree mark. Now, I know a lot of people have mobility past that, and that's fine. If you want to do that, great for mobility reasons, but don't do it with a load, okay? Don't do it with a bar on your back. Don't do it on a belt squat. You want to make sure that if you are doing squats for mobility reasons, where basically you're down here and maybe you're stretching, okay, and you're past that point, that's okay, but don't do it with a load. You'll thank me later, I promise. All right. Number 4 is lifting onto your toes. I don't know if you noticed, but when I was showing what happens when your knees push past your toes, actually you can come up off your heels as well. Now, what does this do? Well, it puts a whole lot of pressure onto your patella right here, okay? Onto the front of your knee. It puts a lot of pressure on your quads and a lot of pressure on your knee. Your knee does not have any muscle, okay? All it is a bone in floating tissue, okay? You got 2 bones that come together. You got a patella that's about that big, right? On the front of your knee. And all that's in there is tissue. So you have to really be careful and take care of your knees. Otherwise, you're gonna have a lot of issues later, all right? That's something that I wish I had known a long time ago through playing sports and everything else. But again, that's why I'm paying it forward now, all right? So lifting onto your toes, what does that look like? Basically, I see this all the time, especially with people who are new to squatting. They are squatting down and they're scared to sit back because they don't want that weight to make them fall back, all right? So instead of sitting back, they're coming forward, and as they're coming forward, their heels can lift up off the ground, okay? That is definitely something you do not want. You want to make sure, this is why with my new squatters, I make sure I get like a chair or a bench or something to put beside or behind them. I make them do the squats without any weight first, because that way they can get the practice in without being worried about, oh my God, I'm gonna fall backwards, right? Also, have someone with you. Have someone with you who knows what they're doing, and they can actually teach you how to do that movement correctly, and they can make sure that you're doing it. If you don't have anyone with you, you can do what I used to do. I used to videotape myself, and I know people in the gym don't like it when you videotape. That's okay. Just put it where only you can see it. And you don't have to post it on social media. The biggest thing is you want to make sure you're doing everything correctly that you need to be doing, okay? So I always say take video from the side. That way you can actually look at your squat, look at what maybe you're doing ineffectively, and you can shift it just a little bit to ensure you have the most effective squat possible, all right? Number 5, ignoring your core. You guys, I see this all the time. A lot of it is because the core is literally what carries our bodies, okay? The core is everything. And a lot of times we don't have the strongest core. So that's one of the things that we really, really have to work on before we go try to lift a bunch of weight on the squat rack, all right? We have to make sure we are doing things that will help us have a strong core, okay? Now, also remember, your core isn't just your front, it's also your back, okay? So there are a lot of exercises out there. I actually have a video on that as well, where you can do those things to ensure you have a stronger core. So that way when you go to squat, you're not doing your core a disservice either, okay? Your core is what should be holding you during your squat to make sure that everything goes to your legs like it's supposed to, okay? So what can happen when you have a weaker core is you can either bend back too far or you can be hunched like this. So I want you to imagine I have 100 pounds on my back. If I'm hunched like this, or I'm over exaggerating like this because my core is weak, what can that do when I actually go to do my squat? Think about that, okay? So make sure your core is nice and tight. When you have that bar on your back, you should be able to adjust just like this, have a nice straight, strong core. You should be able to pull that in. Take a deep breath, squat, blow it out on the way back. That's actually something that we're gonna go into as well, is the breathing part, okay? So don't ignore your core. Your core is the foundation for that squat. So if you're not focusing on keeping that core tight throughout that movement, you are going to be in trouble later when it comes to back pain, all right? So be careful with that, all right? Next thing, dropping your chest too much, okay? What does that look like? Dropping your chest too much, well, that goes back to having a weak core, right? So we're here. Now, dropping your chest too much can look like this, and now I'm bending forward, all right? I'm not upright anymore. Where in all actuality, when we go to squat, if we're keeping our core nice and tight, we should be up just like this. I always tell people, you should be able to look right in front of you. Now, you don't want to have your neck up like this because now you're messing with your spine, but you should be able to look at something that is right in front of you. So I always tell people, find something that's in front of you and focus on that throughout the entire duration of the movement. It shouldn't be, you should not be looking straight ahead in the mirror. You should literally be looking at something down below in front of you, all right? That's how you make sure you don't drop your chest too much. Because what happens is, if I'm here, I find something on the ground that I'm gonna look at, all right? Make sure my stance is good. All right, I'm here, finding my source that I'm gonna stare at. I'm down, and I'm back up. What happens if I drop my chest? I'm no longer looking at that spot. I'm down, now look. I'm looking in front of me, okay? That can cause severe back problems when you have a load on your back. So that's something you definitely wanna stay away from, all right? Squatting too fast. There's something called time under tension, and I'm always talking to people about this because of how important it is. It's not about the amount of weight we can lift, it's about how effective that lift is, all right? So if we're putting a lot of weight on and we're going too fast, we're actually not even getting the benefit of what we're trying to do, all right? So that can look like this. I got my squat, I'm in my rack, I'm here, all right? And it's too heavy, so I'm gonna go down, up, down, up, down, up. That is so fast. And think about it, if you're breathing correctly, you're gonna start hyperventilating, all right? So we wanna stay away from that. So in all reality, what we wanna be doing is we wanna get our squat stance correct. We're gonna stare at our spot on the ground. We're gonna come down, and we're gonna slowly come back up. So I always tell people, count 2 to 3 seconds, going down, hold for a second, and then come back up, okay? It shouldn't be a Speedy Gonzalez movement, all right? It should not be just going up and down, up and down, up and down. Because when you do that, especially, I'm gonna keep saying this, when you have a load on your back, that can really mess up your back. Not only that, but again, you're breathing. You should be giving yourself time to breathe. People wonder why they're wore out after a squat session, and it's not necessarily because their muscles are worn out, it's because they were breathing so fast. That's because they were squatting too fast, okay? So that's the 7th one. And number 8 is what I've been talking about this whole entire time, forgetting to breathe, all right? So if I have my weight on my back, How I want to do this effectively is before I go take this squat or before I go to unrack it. So let's pretend I have my rack up here, okay? And I'm going up underneath it, okay? I'm just gonna pretend with me, all right? Before I lift this up off the rack, then I'm gonna take my one step back. You should only be taking one. Why is that? Because when I get to failure, I wanna just be able to lean forward and put my rack back up, all right? I wanna be able to just go like this and I'm good to go, okay? So I have my bar unracked, or if I'm in the belt squat, I am, ready to go. I've unracked the belt. Now, again, you're taking a deep breath in. This is also gonna help strengthen up your core. It's gonna help tighten those muscles as well. So you take your deep breath. Now, I took 2 breaths in that squat. Or you can also do this. You can hold your breath for the down motion and then blow it all out on the way back up. That means we still have to breathe though. This is not holding your breath the entire time. I see this a lot where a lot of people they'll have that rack, and I see it when they're lifting weights, period, and they just go. First off, you're not making your core any stronger doing that. Second of all, you're gonna cause yourself to pass out, okay? So make sure you're breathing effectively, make sure you're doing your squats effectively, and at the end of the day, let's keep lifting together. Have a good one.